The Adventures of Tom Sawyer by Mark Twain. Longman Simplified English Series. Read by Utchara Boonlert. Chapter 11. On the Iceland. When Tom awoke in the morning, he wondered where he was. He sat up and rubbed his eyes and looked around. Then he remembered it was the cool, grey dawn, and there was a delightful sense of place in the deep lamp and silence of the woods. Not a leaf stirred. Dewdrops stood upon the leaf and grass. A wide layer of ashes covered the fire, and a blue thread of smoke rose straight into the air. Joe and Huck still slept. Now far away in the woods, a bird called, another answered. Gradually the cool, dim grey of the morning widened, and as gradually sounds multiplied and life revealed itself. The marvel of nature, shaking off sleep and going to work, unfolded itself to the boy. A little green worm came drawing over a dewy leaf. Tom sat as still as a stone, with his hope rising and falling as the creature still came towards him or showed a tendency to go astray. When it finally came down upon Tom's leg and began a journey over them, his whole heart was glad, for that meant that he was going to have a new suit of clothes, without a shadow of doubt, a glorious piratical uniform. Now, a procession of ants appeared and went out their labors. One structure with a dead spider 5 times as big as itself, and drenched it, stirred up a tree trunk. A chimney supported better, clamped up the great height of a grass branch, and Tom went down close to it and said, Lady bird, fly away home. Your house is on fire, your children alone. She flew off to see about it. We did not surprise the boy, for he had long known that the lady bird was always ready to believe stories about fires. The birds were singing merrily by now. One swept down a flash of blue flame and stopped on a branch almost within the boy's reach. It turned its head to one side and eyed the strangers with immense curiosity. All nature was wide awake. Long beams of sunlight pierced down through the leafy branches, and a few butterflies came dancing upon the scent. Tom roused the other pirates, and in a minute or two they were crashing after and falling over each other in the shallow water of the sandbar. The torrent had courage of their fret, but it only delighted them. Sight its going was something like burning the bridge between them and civilization. They came back to camp wonderfully refreshed and as hungry as wolves. They soon had the camp fire blazing up again. Huck found a spring of clear cool water close by, and the boys made cups of leaf. Tom and Huck stepped to a promising place on the river bank and drew in their freezing light. Almost immediately they had their reward, enough fit for a family. They fried the fish and were astonished, for no fish had ever seemed so delicious before. They did not know that the quicker a freshwater fish is on the fire after it is caught, the better it is, and they did not stop to think that sleeping, exercise, and bathing in the open air had given them an excellent appetite. They lay about in the church after breakfast, while Huck had a smoke, and then went off through the woods, exploring. They found plenty of things to be delighted with, but nothing to be astonished at. They had a swim every hour, so it was about the middle of the afternoon. When they got back to camp, they were too hungry to stop to fish, but they had a good meal of meat, and drew themselves down in the shed to talk, but the talk soon began to crack, and then died. The quietness that hung over the woods and the sense of loneliness began to have an effect on the spirits of the boys. A wish longing crept upon them. This took deep shape presently. It was budding homesickness. Even Finn the red-handed was dreaming of these doorsteps and his empty barrows, but they were all ashamed of their vagueness, and none was brave enough to say what was in his mind. For some time now the boys had heard a peculiar sound in the distance. On hearing a louder sound, the boys started, glanced at each other indirectly, and listened. There was a long silence, deep and unbroken. Then a dull sound came floating down out of the distance. "What is this?" asked Joe in a whisper. "Let's go and see," said Tom. They sprang to their feet and hurried to the bank facing the village. They parted the brush and peered out. The little steamed ferry boat was not transporting people from bank to bank as usual, but was about a mile below the village. Her deck seemed crowded with people. There were many small boats being brought about, all floating with the current in the neighborhood of the ferry boat, but the boys could not see what the men in them were doing. After a time there was a puff of white smoke from the side of the ferry boat, and as it rose in a lazy curve that same dull sound was borne to the listeners again. "I know now," exclaimed Tom. "Somebody's drowned." "That's it," said Huck. "They did that last summer when Bill Turner was drowned. They shoot a big gun over the water, and that makes the body come up to the surface." The boys continued to listen and watch. Then a revealing thought flashed through Tom's mind, and he exclaimed, "Boys, I know who are drowned. We are." They felt like heroes in an instant. They were missed. They were being wept over. Hearts were broken off them, and best of all, they were the talk of the whole town, and the envy of the boys. This was glorious. It was worth while being a pirate after all. As twilight drew on, The ferry boat went back to her as custom business, and the rowing boats disappeared. The pirates returned to camp. They were swollen with vanity over their new importance and the great trouble that they were causing. They caught fish, cooked supper, and ate it, and then began to guess what the village was thinking and saying about them. But when the shadows of night closed round them, they gradually caused to talk and sat gazing into the fire, with their minds evidently wandering elsewhere. The excitement had gone now, and Tom and Joe could not keep out thoughts of current persons at home who were not enjoying their far adventure as much as they were. A sigh or two escaped unwittingly. "Tom," said Joe hesitatingly, "pirates do go home sometimes, don't they?" Tom poured scorn upon him. Huck had not said a word on the subject, and was therefore free to join in with Tom. Joe made across and firmly denied that he was suffering from homesickness, or that he wished to desert. As the night deepened, Huck began to nod, and presently fell asleep. Joe followed next. Tom lay watching the two for some time. At last he got up cautiously and went searching among the grass in the dim light of the camp fire. He picked up and inspected several large pieces of the thin white bark of a tree, and finally caught two. Then he knelt by the fire and wrote something on each of these in pencil. One he rolled up and put in his coat pocket, and the other he put in Joe's cap, together with certain invaluable schoolboy treasures, among them a piece of chalk, a rubber ball, 3 fish hooks, and a special kind of marble. Then he tiptoed away.